end of an era on AMC. Better Call Saul, finishing up its series last night, finishing up season 6. Jimmy McGill, Saul Goodman, Gene.
Takovic.
Yes, Takovic. Man, what a ride it's been. I just want to ask you right off the bat, like where does Better Call Saul stand for you in terms of like all time TV shows?
Oh, I think Better Call Saul is certainly one of the great dramas, and I think it's very hard to extrapolate Better Call Saul from Breaking Bad because it's not. It starts out as a prequel, ends as a prequel and a sequel, mixes in between. They are so conjoined. It's perhaps more instructive to think about them as a part 1 and 2, like they're literally the same thing, because it's not. It's so much more beyond a traditional prequel or traditional sequel as a show. You have characters returning like Gus and Mike, but those performances are almost like built up by the previous experience of Breaking Bad, even though we're taking place in the past. And Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould are like even better at writing and making a show like this, having already made Breaking Bad, that they're just so intertwined. It's very fascinating. It really has no parallel, I think, to dramatic television anywhere else. So I think I like Better Call Saul more than Breaking Bad, but of course there's a huge asterisk when you say that because they're so connected. But just in general, I'm a gigantic fan of the two, and I think it's just a huge achievement. And the journey we went on with Better Call Saul, a ending place we did not see coming in any way. Like, I think this whole journey has been such a huge gift and so rewarding. I think that was kind of what you saw last night with people talking online. Like, people that have been on this ride just feel so fulfilled and like just so thankful for how this has gone.
Yeah, it's really impressive. They've made 11 uh, seasons of television. They've made a movie off this. It spanned 15 years. So half of our lives, Dave. We've been in this Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul world. It's really impressive. I think what's most impressive about it is both Breaking Bad and Saul were shows that kind of started off feeling a bit uncertain about like where the ride was going to take you, right? In both shows, I think you could say that first season takes a little bit to like find its footing, but once it does, the show has such a way, and Gould and Gilligan have such a way of honing these characters and refining them to precision and tying everything together and being so thoughtful about how they take care of their characters, how they give them time, how they create satisfying but like understated endings for all of these storylines, that it's hard to not just be completely impressed and to like think about this era of television and how you could not put Gould and Gilligan in the conversation for best TV writers and showrunners. If you don't include them in the discussion, you're just being negligent. I thought this series finale was incredibly impressive. It jumped 3 timelines. It jumped all over the place, tied it all in seamlessly, and I think really brought back to the forefront of the show who is Jimmy McGill, Saul Goodman, Gene Takovic. Like that was really what the core of the show was. And Rhea Seehorn's Kim Wexler became such a central part to who Jimmy McGill is, and became really like the other co-lead of the show. And it so beautifully tied everything in with that final scene, them in the prison. I just was like, man, this is like chef's kiss, masterpiece. Like, close the book. They can't come back to this world because it was just too perfect of an ending in my book.
I mean, there's truly nothing to come back to anyway. If anyone's advocating that, they just have like shitty taste. Like, oh, you want to watch Kim perform Law in her now return to peaceful life with nobody else you've heard of before?
Yeah.
Except for some other ancillary characters still alive. Like, what's the point? Like, everyone's gone.
Right.
But like, there's no dramatic tension left. Like, everything has been laid out there in a satisfying way. There's nothing left to achieve. And I think that's what makes this finale, as well as the last episode, Waterworks, and the episode before that, Breaking Bad, all I think really cool for bringing back Walter White, Jesse Pinkman, as well as Chuck McGill. in these flashback scenes, and doing it not for a hey, look, there's that famous actor I love playing a character that I didn't think I would see again. It's not because of that. It's actually like a really, I think, smart way, and they do it with Mike too. I think it's a really smart way to kind of like reinforce the themes that are happening in the rest of the episode. And you do that by making a new scene with Walter White, for example. Like
Mhm.
it's just a huge flex, but it's actually serving like a dramatic purpose for the storyline you're being told. I thought that was like, really impressive, really satisfying. When I saw it when Kim in the flashback in Waterworks last week's episode, Kim leaves Saul's office after serving or doing the divorce paperwork,
Mm.
and she meets Jesse Pinkman smoking a bogue on the sidewalk, and they have a
Yeah.
conversation, and it's like such a full circle moment for the show and for the Kim Wexler character. And how better way to serve that than to bring everyone back one more time to see Jesse, you know? Like it's just a huge flex. And the Breaking Bad episode, of course, which was the much hyped up one we did know about, where Cranston and Paul do come back as Walt and Jesse, and just this small scene in the RV waiting for the uh, engine to not flood or the battery to recharge, whatever it was, and they just have a conversation with Saul. Uh, it's right after they almost kill him and bury him in the
Mhm.
sand, right? And it's like, man, I think that there's a really satisfying, really effective conversations for the show. And just another thing too, like it is kind of hilarious that many people, us included, were speculating wildly about the fate of Kim Wexler. Is Lalo gonna kill her? What's gonna happen to Kim? It's like, man, like this was so much better. There's no way
Oh
Kim was
yeah.
ever going to die because the show is so much bigger than that. And of course, we knew she wasn't gonna die once Howard did die. I think everyone knew that.
Yeah.
But man, like it just a very satisfying ending that still found ways to surprise.
Yeah, and I think Kim's arc, and especially in the second half of the season, where the "will she die, won't she die" is so much more accentuated by, or says so much more about the show that this was, by basically having her live out this purgatory where she's
Mm.
just suffering through monotony of being a Karen. Like living a life where she is not challenged, she's not enjoying herself. I mean, the whole like 30 minutes you get of her life where she's like talking with her neighbors about deviled eggs or Miracle Whip with her boyfriend and having
Yeah.
like the most bland sex where he's just saying, yep, yep, yep,
Oh my
over and over.
god.
I just was like, holy fuck, this is so much worse than probably just being dead. Because for Kim, who lived for these thrilling moments with Jimmy, with Saul, lived to like pull these schemes. You even saw from childhood was kind of like enthralled by getting one over on people, to be just living out this very bland life is like the worst possible outcome for her. And then, I think to like see how that leads to the certainly I would say probably Emmy winning moment of her breaking down in that bus after the conversation with Howard's widow was just like so pitch perfect. Like
Mm.
you really can't write it better than that. And to your point about like the thoughtfulness of like using flashbacks, even the thoughtfulness of like how they set up things in the future, right? I was really struck by Carol Burnett and
Mm.
her role in this, right?
Yeah.
And for a while you're just like, you're just gonna get Carol Burnett, this TV legend, to just kind of be this like side character. There's got to be
Right.
more here, and her being the one that kind of makes everything come crashing down on Saul, kind of pulls the card out that makes the House of Cards finally fall in on him, was so perfect. Because where Jimmy finally starts to gain some power and really start to become Saul is with the Sandpiper case, which is based on
Uh,
these older people being like brought it out. I don't remember all the
yeah.
details of it,
Taking
but that
advantage of
yeah,
financially.
but that being this like central piece of Saul's story, and then this older person basically had making things come crashing down on him because Jimmy had a soft spot for older people. Like in the long run, like that, her saying "I trusted you." I think in that moment, it really was supposed to bring him back to like all those sandpiper people that I think he actually cared about, but also saw an opportunity for his own personal gain. I just was like, man, how the hell did they think to like set this up in this way?
Mm.
I thought that was so good, and they kind of mentioned to you in the flashback with Kim how Jimmy's like, you should have taken that sandpiper money. You're gonna regret not taking that. It's gonna be a fortune down in Florida. Like, I just was like, oh, they're really priming you for that. Just thought
Mm.
that was so great. Also loved all the flashbacks in the finale about the what would you do with the time machine stuff and
Yeah.
how Walter White gets to have like the final like dagger in him or I guess Walter White's final dagger in Jimmy where he's like, man, you just always been this way, huh? Which really like just harkens back to like that like is he Saul, is he Jimmy, like of the show
Yeah.
for the first 4 seasons. I just was
Right.
like, man, this is so expertly written. This is so impressive.
Yeah. Mike bearing it out there, reflecting on past regrets he would change. And Jimmy, of course, the only thing he can think about is money, investing
Yep.
in Berkshire Hathaway at the right time. It's like, yeah, it's just the perfect distillation. And then I wasn't expecting to see a Chuck flashback, to be
I
honest,
know.
either, because before that too, you have that scene in the courtroom where Jimmy decides to fess up and perjure himself and expose his true misdeeds to save Kim more or less from the civil suit. When he mentions Chuck, they immediately cut the camera to a shot of the exit sign humming. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh, that's like such a nice nod to Chuck, who's been off the show for a few years at this point. But then we actually get one last scene with Jimmy just stopping by to bring Chuck stuff and having that conversation. And at the end, Chuck's like, we're always having the same conversation, or however he says it. And it's like, man, it's a really good way to reinforce, I think, everything and show that Better Call Saul and like this arc of the Jimmy McGill character and Kim as well has just been about morality. That is what
Mhm.
this is about. And to me, that's why I think I perhaps like it more than Breaking Bad, because Better Call Saul as a show with much less flashy action. Not that the morality of Walter White wasn't touched upon, of course it was, but Saul, I think, approaches the storytelling with a bit more of a high-minded way, where the writing and the passage of time is what you find so rewarding, and that's why that
Mhm.
journey is so satisfying.
Yeah, and it really spans so much time, and it's really a credit to I think Odenkirk, who it's easy for Rhea Seehorn, I think to get a lot of the attention because she is so dynamite as Kim. It's easy to give Patrick Fabian the shine as Howard, especially in these later seasons as he's coming more and more undone. Tony Dalton, obviously, as Lalo, just like an amazing villain, one of the best that I think we've ever seen on television. And of course, Michael Mando is Nacho, like this like character who I think kind of flew under the radar and felt just like they were there, but maybe I wasn't appreciative of them until this final season when they really got some wonderful moments. And
Mm,
that not even mentioning Giancarlo Esposito and Jonathan Banks is just like their steady selves in this series. It's like there's so many good performances, but Odenkirk playing this person who ranges like 20 years throughout the course of the show. You see
mm.
flashbacks to him and Chuck when they're younger at points in earlier seasons. Then you see him as Gene when he's like in his mid to late 50s. Like pretty impressive to see him span this and to jump around in this second part of the last season where he's
Right.
really going back and forth in time a lot. I thought he was just great.
Yeah. And thinking back a few episodes too, um, the way season 6 really brought everything with Howard Hamlin full circle
Yeah.
in an impactful way, certainly never saw that coming. I never saw Howard being the reason that Kim and Jimmy would split, let
Hmm.
alone the reason they both get done in
Yep.
to varying degrees. I did not see that coming. I think that episode after the cleanup, after his death, when it gets hidden by Mike and crew, when they go to the memorial for
Hmm.
Howard and you watch Kim and Jimmy lie to Howard's widow's face about what was going on, it's like, wow, actually this makes sense. Like Kim found her breaking point, and
Yep.
that's why everything feels so earned on the show, because it's so much painstaking time. How much time do we spend watching Jimmy fuck with Howard? And for a while you don't like Howard at all. You
Yep.
dislike Howard as a character, and then by the end, you just feel so devastated about what happened to him and
Y-
happened to his reputation as well, which is kind of the next step of it too. Like it's again, it's just the journey and the time spent feels so rewarding once you see the whole thing happen.
Yeah, and to also see Howard kind of be the reason that Jimmy and Kim come back together when Jimmy learns that Kim gave this deposition to Howard's wife, and potentially is going to be, uh, you know, uh, brought to civil
Right.
court about it.
Financially ruined.
Yeah, and I think it leads to a really wonderful redemptive moment, which I wasn't sure if we were going to get one, but to see Jimmy, come clean in the courtroom in that sense, a very like grand setup, but I think it was, very Jimmy McGill Showtime, Saul Goodman esque. That felt very, very real. And then to like end the series with them just smoking a cigarette, just chatting. Like, and that was like one of the, I think the things that people that really appreciated the like intricacies of the show is like the depiction of marriage as being this kind of like just like friendship, partnership. Doesn't have to be this romp all the time. It doesn't have to be like super intense all the time. A lot of it is mundane, and to have that kind of be where their relationship came back together, and to see them like that shot of them looking at each other when Kim's leaving the prison, but knowing that they're like more together in that moment than they'd been even at times when they were sitting next to each other on the couch in later part of season 6. It was just like really, really just like amazingly done, shot so like beautifully. I was just like blown away, and they couldn't have done any better. But they could have had this huge reckoning where they like finally like talk to each other and share their emotions, but it's just Kim kind of pulling a I don't know, a ruse on them, saying that she's her Jimmy's lawyer, and then
Right.
they're smoking a cigarette, and she just goes, "You got him down to 7.5 years, huh?" That's like pretty much like them just shooting the shit again. Back
Yeah.
in the Hamlin McGill law firm. I was just like, man, this is too perfect. So
Yeah. Also, a shout out, Marie Schrader coming back, Hank's
yeah,
widow. Another mind blowing thing. Didn't expect that, and she gets
so cool.
some great lines too.
Mhm.
The utter disgust on her face when she realizes that Jimmy has negotiated a incredibly charitable plea deal for himself somehow. Like that was so satisfying too to see like Jimmy in all his glory, like
Mhm.
effectively save himself from life imprisonment to 7 years, perhaps less. It's like, fuck. And then it's so perfect when he sacrifices all of that to save Kim. It's like,
Yep.
yeah, like nothing better.
Yep. Just kind of thinking back, are there any like episodes of the show, moments of the show that you really just like look back at and you're like, man, that was like prime Saul?
Yeah, I think there's a few key things. I think the best Mike stuff is a few seasons back. Everything with the Super Lab with the Germans. I think they were the
Yep.
right. That was probably the best of Mike on Saul. Really great. Lalo Salamanca, of course, was a complete scene stealer for a season and a half. Really kind of came out of nowhere with Tony Dalton there. The kind of the menace that he brought. Better Call Saul, I think, really exceeded expectations on the cartel storyline side of
Hmm.
things, where there wasn't a whole lot you would think to gain because that's all prequel, and we know Gus is going to live, we know Mike is going to live. Um, Walter White hasn't become Walter White yet, all of that, and yet they really found a way, I think, to do everything with that, and of course, the long journey you have with Nacho, you know,
Hmm.
starting off with some small potato stuff, right? When we see Tuco before Tuco gets sent to jail, finding out Tuco got sent to jail because of Mike, stuff like that, right? And then everything building up until we see how Nacho goes out earlier in season 6. There was really nowhere left for him to run. And it's like, wow, I think the cartel journey, I think, quite impressed me. Um, I think also one of my favorite moments that I've rewatched on YouTube recently was kind of just the end of the Jimmy Chuck relationship where
Yeah.
Chuck gets exposed as being mentally ill in
In the
court
courtroom.
by
Yeah.
Jimmy when he hides the cell phone in his suit or whatever. Uh, yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff where, like, I think early on, some people, like you said, show takes a little while to get its going. It's a bit slow. The doc review stuff, Sandpiper,
Hmm.
HHM. It's like, what's going on here? But then these just grander moments and payoffs begin to happen, and then, of course, starting with season 5, it's just a never-ending crescendo as Breaking Bad and Saul unite and then it's off to the races.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. For me, I would say the courtroom scene where Saul exposes Chuck is just like so devastating and heartbreaking, but I think really like encapsulates the show, as well as I can't remember if it's that episode or the next one where Jimmy finally decides to like change his name and
Mm.
gives Kim's the finger guns, the Saul finger guns, and then how that's mirrored in at the end of the next season when Kim gives them back to him when she decides to kind of break bad herself. I just think is like prime Saul stuff. Um and yeah, there's like I can't remember exactly which episode it is, but there's like a scene when they're all the cartel stuff, and it's like Mike and Lalo are both trying to like find like one of the German people or like go after them or something like that. There's like a chase or
Hmm.
something like that. That's like another like thing that really stands out to me. I can't remember if it was must have been season 5, I guess, but
No, no, I think that was early this season when Lao's basically on the hunt to figure out about the
yes,
lab, and he goes all the way to Germany to like
you're
get
right.
information. Yeah, with the
Yeah,
axe.
yeah, that's good. Oh man, so good. Lalo's such a great
I
villain,
mean,
man.
even this season when we watch Lao's psycho ass in the sewer spying on the lab, like that whole build up to, because it's so Saul, so detailed. We watch him stroll into the grocery store, wash up in the public restroom, and then saunter on back underground like he's fucking Pennywise, you know?
hmm
Oh, and
Gil-
even before that, when we find out that he had a body double with his own teeth
oh
set
man,
up, you know?
incredible.
Oh my god.
So good. Yeah, Better Call Saul. Gonna really miss it, and it seems like there's just like a ton of love for this show right now, and
Hmm.
people really appreciating it, rightfully so.
Yeah, really rooting for the Emmy for Seahorn there. I'd have to imagine the drama Emmys tough pull here versus Succession, but uh, I think if Seahorn gets the dub here, the way Kerry Russell got the Americans dub at the end of the Americans run, I
Mhm.
think everyone consider that a big win for the show overall.
Yeah. Gilligan is shopping a new show right now. Gould, I think, is also like or working on new projects. So we probably won't see them working together again. But man, anytime we can get them back together, anytime we can just watch anything from these two, I think I'm totally bought in at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think too. 15 years they haven't done much else beyond this world, so how exciting to see both of them get to flap their wings for the first time in a while.
Absolutely. Any last thoughts on Saul?
Nah, man. I feel
Bad.
like I think there's a good amount of people that have never watched Saul that are Breaking Bad fans. And I think now more than ever, I'm even more confident in telling people that they would like it. They're
Mhm.
obviously very different, but I think the way the shows became intertwined by the end, I think would really pull in Breaking Bad fans that perhaps were a bit on the fence with the way the early seasons go of Saul. So people gotta watch it.
Completely agree. If you liked Breaking Bad, you'll like Better Call Saul. Watch it.